Hello, and welcome to Sparky's podcast.
So announcements. I am planning to start a new podcast. Uh, it's going to be the Society of Digital Anomalous Archive. Uh, so keep a lookout for that. And uh, we're also going to talk about my original species at some point. It's not the same. It's not going to be on that podcast. That podcast is its own thing. It's more like a story podcast. That one compared to this one. So further ado, let's get into today's episode. So basically, uh, I'm going to explain a little bit of things about macOS. You know how I like about I like talking about computers and whatnot. So let's go with that. So basically, uh, we're going to talk a bit about what is a command line, and then we'll talk specifically about how macOS is more similar to Linux than you think. Okay, so a command line is command user interface or something like that. So basically, it's just imagine if you if your computer didn't have a desktop and no applications as you standardly know them, you wouldn't click on an icon. If you booted it without that, all you would have is the command line. It's a bunch of text lines. There's a bunch of different commands. One of the biggest problems with macOS is that installing packages is way harder compared to Linux because you have to get a third-party package manager. There is one built in. People keep forgetting about this, but you can't install anything with it pretty much. I think the best you can do with it is probably install system applications and stuff like that. I don't know the full list. Just you could probably find it somewhere, but uh, anyway, once you install a certain uh, command, like once you run a certain command from a website called Homebrew, you're going to look for Apple Homebrew or macOS Homebrew or whatever in Google or whatever search engine you prefer. Uh, and it should land you on the page. There should be a copy paste command. Copy that, open your terminal, paste it there, and press enter. And it might ask for your password. I don't remember. It's been quite a while. Uh, so basically, once it's done, it'll finish installing. If you come from Linux, uh, one of the biggest things that you will find challenging is or different is Brew will straight up refuse to operate if it detects you using sudo. The reason being it does not want people to mess it up. Basically, it 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 doesn't want it. It won't. It will just refuse to run if you use sudo. In the past, I remember a time where you could, but that's no longer the case, and it successfully installs without almost every package that's available. I think every package that's available on the repository. Uh, and one thing to tell you guys, believe it or not, we have root. Yeah, that user account that supposedly only Linux has. Technically, it's all in all Unix systems. You're like, Unix? Did you just spell it wrong? No. Unix is a that is a older operating system, uh, which Linux is based off of Unix. macOS is based off Unix. Windows based off their own framework. They used to be based off MS-DOS, which wasn't based off anything. Uh, so nowadays, the modern day operating systems are usually built upon each other. Example, Android is built off. Uh, Android's built off. What do we call it? Linux. Yes, I was just talking about Linux. Yeah, it's late, and I'm somewhat sick while recording this, but whatever. Uh, uh, so before I, I leave you to uh, do whatever you want to do, one of the things I suggest you install, no matter what. Honestly, I think it should be installed in it with every distro and macOS itself, which it's not. For macOS, you're going to have to install brew, but in almost every distro, it should be in all the distros repositories. But don't quote me because, yeah. Uh, install NeoFetch. NeoFetch basically adds a when you run it, basically gives you information about your system and and if you put it in your bash RC or ZSH RC or whatever is your default shell. Yes, there's different shells. macOS comes with two, but one that's by default is ZSH. You can still use bash if you want by writing bash, but you'll get a warning on macOS. So basically, once you put it there in your ZSH RC, it will your ZS when every time you start, you'll have uh ASCII representation of your operating system on macOS. It's an Apple, yes. NeoFetch does recognize macOS and does display macOS Apple. You can technically change it using ASCII files, and it also will give you a configurable amount. You can configure it how much information it gives, and it can be helpful. Uh, so if you find that useful, thanks for telling me. So leave a rating wherever you listen. Uh, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, I think. And on Spotify, I plan on having a poll of what operating system you guys use. Okay? I'll only put Linux, Windows, and macOS. So I'm talking about desktop operating systems. If you use Ubuntu and whatnot, just press Linux. I'm just curious. And it might be in the subject of another episode. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye.